Good evening, everyone. Today is July 20th, 2015, and welcome back to Veterans Voices, a monthly talk show focusing on veterans issues, your issues. I'm your host, Nathan Johnson, and I'm joined again by my co-host, Kevin Graves. Kevin, welcome back. You've been missing for a couple months.
I'm glad to be back.
We're glad to have you back.
Glad to be back. Tonight's episode is about what it means to be a Gold Star family. The term Gold Star family is used to describe a family whose loved one was killed while serving on active duty in military service. They will often display a service banner in their home that has a gold star, or in some cases multiple stars, for the family member who has died. I am a Gold Star father, and all of our guests tonight are also Gold Star family members.
We would now like to share a thought-provoking video from the Gold Star Family Registry. Watch with us.
They fight to liberate. They fight to let justice arise and tolerance and goodwill among all thy people. They yearn but for the end of battle, for their return to the haven of home. Some will never return. Embrace these, Father, and receive them, thy heroic servants, into thy kingdom.
Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and the success of liberty.
And on the far shore, the sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices. We hope you enjoyed that short little video. We're broadcasting live from the CCTV studio and live streaming this episode on our website. We'll be taking your calls, emails, and live chats anytime during the show. You can call now. Our phone number is 925-313-1170, and our email appears below. Again, 925-313-1170. We welcome you to call and ask questions through our live chat link located on the top left of our homepage. Call, ask questions, make comments, get yourself involved in tonight's episode.
We want to hear your voice this evening, whether you're a veteran or a Gold Star family member. How did military loss affect you? Loss affects so many, whether it's a family member, friend, or someone that served alongside you. We want to hear your stories tonight and understand what you're experiencing.
Thank you, Kevin. We have a different format for the show tonight. This is a very important show, and we've thought about this show very carefully because our guests are very special guests. Collectively, they'll speak as a group led by Kevin. I'll be stepping aside. I'll leave the set, and shortly to let the conversation begin, but we'll return later in the show. First, we have a video that we will show you as what the Gold Star families go through. On Memorial Day, we accompanied a Gold Star father while he placed the American flag on his son's grave. That father is Kevin Graves.
Memorial Day is a day in which we honor our war dead. Kevin Graves, a Gold Star father who lost his son, Specialist Joseph Graves, in the Iraq War on July 25, 2006, knows that all too well. On this day, Kevin, joined by his lovely wife Leanne Graves and members of multiple Boy Scout troops throughout the San Francisco Bay Area, place one flag in front of each and every one of the 113,000 headstones. Let us not forget the ultimate sacrifice of these men and women who have gone before us and the families they leave behind. You will forever be in our hearts, never forgotten and always cherished.
This is the 23rd of May, 2015. It's the first day of the Memorial Day weekend. This is the one weekend of the year where we honor those that have given the ultimate sacrifice for their country. So every year we come down here to see Joey. We come here to honor the Boy Scouts who plant these flags in front of 113,000 headstones in the cemetery. We can't thank them enough every time that they plant a flag, the honor that they show to our veterans and our killed in actions that are buried here at Golden Gate National Cemetery. This is one of the regular occasions when we come over to visit my son. And it's a bittersweet day. We honor, we remember, we appreciate, but we also feel the loss and the pain that never seems to go away. Welcome back to Veterans Voices, where together we are stronger. I am joined by our special guests who are Gold Star family members and have lost someone close to them. Please welcome to the show, along with me, Chuck, Lana, Jessica, and Natalie. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
So how do you like being on TV? Pretty neat stuff, huh?
Nerve-wracking. Yeah.
So we thought that it was important to talk to our veteran community about this club. You know, we have this kind of saying amongst ourselves that we're part of a club that really nobody ever wants to be a part of.
Yeah.
But yet somehow we found strength, we found ways to move on, we found resources that have helped us. And so we thought it was important to share that with our veteran community tonight. So I think first what I'd like to do is I'm going to start with Lana and have her just tell us a little bit about Jeremy.
A little bit about Jeremy. Jeremy is a United States Marine, and he was killed in action going house to house in Fallujah, Iraq on November 15, 2004. He was very fun-loving. He enjoyed camping, fishing, all the stuff that teenagers love, snowboarding. He fished ever since he was 4, and we each year on Armed Forces Day, every May, we put on a fishing derby in his name to raise funds for a scholarship. We give out to 2 local high schools, and the criteria we have is that the applicants have to turn in an essay stating how their leadership, sportsmanship, and/or community service all plays a role in making the world a better place.
It's important for all of us, I think, that one of the reasons that we're willing to kind of put ourselves out there, kind of take a chance here in getting involved in something that's, you know, very difficult to talk about sometimes, is that the legacy is important for all of us. For Jessica and Natalie, it was their husbands that were killed in action, and for Chuck and Lana and myself, it was our sons. And I think the legacy is important, and I think that's all part of what we talk about when we talk about the fishing derby. And we've all kind of done some different things. Chuck, you do something special in Manteca regularly, as a matter of fact, to continue the legacy of your son.
Yeah, after his death, we decided that we wanted to do something for the troops that were still deployed. And so the family got together and we put together what we call the Corporal Palmer Memorial Troop Support Program. And what we do is we send care packages to our troops, regardless where they are in the world. We, of course, Afghanistan and Iraq, but we've sent to Africa, and to Somalia.
Somalia?
That's it. Thank you.
There we go.
And there's been several places where we ship them. We continue to do that.
Supporting the troops throughout the world, wherever they're deployed. Because deployment doesn't necessarily always just mean in combat, but to wherever they're deployed, wherever they're away from their family, a little touch of home. And Jessica and Natalie are in a very unique situation in that you both lost your husband and have children that kind of carry that legacy on for you guys. So, who wants to talk?
Go ahead.
Okay. So Ben and I were high school sweethearts. So to me, he was just fun-loving Ben. And his legacy, in my mind, and I think a lot of his friends and family, is that he's just this crazy goofball of a guy who did something really heroic and who was selfless. And my hope for my son, Mac, who was 8 months old when Ben was killed in Iraq, is that he'll just know his dad. He'll know who the man who loved him unconditionally and wanted to be his father and wanted to be there for him. And he'll know all the qualities that he had, good or bad, and he'll realize that his dad's a hero.
And Jess, your story is even a little different than that again. Tell us about Zoe.
So I was 7 months pregnant when Sean was killed in Afghanistan. So Zoe, unfortunately, never got to meet her dad. So it's different to now tell a story of a man that was once here and she's just a picture to him versus a familiar face. But it's, I was telling these guys before, you see things in your children that you think are taught, but Zoe is spot on, Sean, that charismatic smile that, lights up the room, but also she's got that lawyer tactic where she's pressing what she wants down to the button, which is Sean all over. But, it's important, these things, to bring awareness and to bring our children to the military events and let them know this is why your dad did what he did. And, he served his country proudly, and he's still taking care of us even as he's not here, really.
Absolutely. As we talk about survivors, which is what we are, and there's a lot of different causes for death in our military. We were just, unfortunately, this week, it was a tragic week last week with the situation in Chattanooga with guys that weren't even deployed or, facing these kind of situations on homeland. But we've had a long history in the United States of loss. I mean, you go back to World War II, where hundreds of thousands of individuals gave their life for freedoms in other people's country, and the Vietnam War, 58,000 something plus that we lost over there, and Korea, which is always bothers me in that it's described as the forgotten war, and any war where you lose 38,000 plus military personnel, it should never be forgotten. And so I think it's important that even though our world revolves around post 9/11, most of us they went in, our survivors went in around 9/11. I mean, for Joey, he was a sophomore in high school and he wanted to serve his country. He felt like his country was being attacked. I know that's a common theme with many, but we want to remember that a lot of families are Gold Star families, or a lot of families are survivor families, and it goes back to all of our, I want to acknowledge all of our survivors. And I would encourage anybody out there that wants to call in and talk about it, anything that has to do with a loved one they lost, or a friend that they lost, or a comrade they lost, that they do that. And the number has been put on the screen from time to time. And I have an email here that I'm going to read, and it says, please tell us what others who care can do to help you. Does asking you to tell about what happened to your family member or how you are doing now help? And God bless you. And that's from Sandy. I may know who that is, but that's from Sandy. Who wants to address that? Can you bring that back for me, please? Does asking you about, to tell you about your loved one, does that help?
It does. We're talking about our loved ones is kind of a healing process for us, because we remember the smaller things about our kids when we are able to talk about them. It's easy to forget, some of the little things that they would do. Charles was very nitpicky about things and stuff like that, and his food couldn't touch on the plate, things like that. And so when you get a chance to talk about your children like that, then it's a healing process. And I think it gives the other person an idea, hey, you know, that was a family, that was a loved one. It's a true loss. So.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I think that all we have left of our loved ones, the ones we lost, is the memories. And so any chance that we have to revitalize those is extremely important. Mm-hmm. I also think that it's an interesting question. The other part of the question was, how are you doing now? That's a little tougher.
I think my biggest thing is it never gets easier. You just get better at handling it as every year goes by. It's never going to go away from year to year, but you get better at dealing with it.
Yeah. Very well said.
I think it depends on how soon after. You know, when Ben was just killed, and everybody really rallied around and tried to be there, and those efforts may not have been felt right then because, you know, the family was just in shock and just devastated. Couldn't really process anything at that point. But, you know, I still have the cards and the emails and just little mementos that I've kept. And even though it's almost 7 years later, looking back and reading those, that brings a significant amount of healing, in addition to talking about talking about him and who he was, remembering.
And I think that that's also another important point, is that the grieving process is different for each one of us. Mm-hmm. We each progress at different levels, and some don't progress at all. Mm-hmm. And that's nobody's fault. That's nobody has a responsibility to work through the grieving process. There's no right way to do it. It's all very individual. Some of us kind of feel our way through ourselves. Some of us are led spiritually. Some of us are led by counseling. Mm-hmm. And it's a very unique experience to work through that grieving process and that healing process. And it just happens differently for each one of us. Yeah. I have another email. Is this on the chat? Here that says, my family and I are forever grateful. There are simply no words that can express our heartfelt gratitude. We will do everything that we can to make sure those around us will never forget our nation's fallen heroes or you, their families. Mm-hmm. May God bless you all. And that comes from Ted in Riverside, California, who I may know also. But we appreciate those comments, and you know, we do what we can to continue the legacy. You know, a lot of America doesn't even realize we're still at war. The Afghani war is the longest war in our country's history. Mm-hmm. And yet there's a lot of people that don't realize that those sacrifices are still being made. And thank God there's less sacrifice today than there was. I mean, I think about the Ailes family, and I think part of how this works too is that we're fortunate to have families walk in our footsteps ahead of us. Yeah. There was somebody that walked in my shoes before I did, that helped me walk the walk that I'm walking today. And you know, the Ailes had been through this a couple of years before us. When we met them, mm-hmm. we got an idea that there was the ability to move forward. Because sometimes, you're talking about the beginning now. I mean, you don't feel like you're going to move forward.
Mm-mm. Not at all.
You feel a fog, and you don't know when that fog is going to lift.
Everything else seems so insignificant, and it's like time in my world just stops. Yeah. But everyone else, you know, time everywhere else seems to keep going, and it's almost offensive. Yeah. You know, it's not that people are offensive, but just the fact that my world's crashing. But you know, so it takes time for sure.
And I know, Jessica, you've kind of said that same thing.
Yeah.
You've expressed those same feelings before.
7 months pregnant, and I think that's what kind of saved me and the massive amount of family I have around me. But I had to take care of myself. I was 7 months pregnant, but you go from, I think the thing that people don't realize too is in that situation, I was a mom and a wife. And now I'm going to be both mom and dad. I am going to now be a single parent, and you're grieving the loss of your husband, and you're also grieving the plans you had together. You're not just grieving the person, you're grieving the rest of your life, and your life is now taking a new direction, and that is a scary thing.
There's that collateral grief, that collateral. Yes. For me, it's not having grandchildren. Joy was my only child. I'll never have any of my own grandchildren, and there's that collateral loss, Zoe will never meet her dad. And I want to tell you that these are two of the most courageous women. I've got to know them dearly. We spend time together. We do things together. And I know both Zoe and Mac like they're my own grandchildren. But, and they're the most loving kids. And you guys have done such a great job in making sure that your husbands have been represented. Interesting question. I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there to you. And if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. But it's a very interesting question for the spouses. Would you be okay with your children joining the military after suffering the loss of your husbands? That's a tough one, huh?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, Zoe's, you know, Sean was in the military, enrolled in the Navy before we started dating, and then we fell in love, and he kind of got out of that, but then joined the Army a couple years later, so he always had that need to serve, and I've always been a very patriotic girl, and so as hard as it would be, if that was what she felt in her heart, I would back her up 100%. I'd be scared as ever, but you know, I'd be proud.
And that's all. How about you, Natalie?
I mean, I feel the same way. I remember having those conversations with Ben in the coffee shop when he was telling me, I want to do it, you know, I want to enlist, and I knew he wanted to do something bigger than himself. And I admired that, and honestly, I supported him all the way. And I knew the risks, you know, we all do. But I supported him because I loved him and I wanted what was best for him. And if my son came to me and said that, I'd want to do the same thing, so.
That's a tough question to answer, though, because I know both Mac and Zoe, and I can't imagine them anything but being these two cute little kids, right?
Yeah.
Kevin, though, you know, my son was older, so he had a son. And he joined the military. So my grandson's in the Army. And he did a tour in Kuwait. And you know, you do the same thing. You just pray for him. You hope for him to come home and things of that nature. And he did. It was fine. But it was an interesting concept. You know, you talk about, would you allow your other children? Well, sometimes you do. And you bless them, just like I did with Charles. And he's home again, and we're fine. And we're very happy about that.
Chuck, there was a special chat that came in directed to you. I'm going to ask you this question. How did you find the strength to move forward? It's a nice, simple question.
Family, church members. There just was a lot of people there for us the whole time. And throughout the years, it's been, you know, we talk a lot about Manteca and how they're supportive that town is to fallen heroes. And between the community and our family and our friends, things have carried on, you know, and they're always there. If we have a down moment, they're there to help us pick up.
And we've gotten some great chat questions and some good emails. I would encourage our listeners to call in if they are near a phone and they want to have some questions that they can ask specifically to our guests here tonight. So please look at the number on the screen and call in if you will. Lana, you have some other children. You have
I do.
3 daughters?
My husband and I have 3 daughters, yes.
How is that? What's the synergy there? How does that work? Expound on that.
Well, first of all, each of their birthdays signifies something of the war. Our oldest daughter was 23 at the time of Jeremy's death. She was born on September 12th, almost on September 11th. Our middle daughter, her birthday, she was 14 at the time. Her birthday is March 19th, the start of the war. Wow. And our youngest daughter, which was 12 at the time, her birthday is November 13th, 2 days before Jeremy died. So.
Tends to be a lot of significance in things that didn't have quite the same significance before.
Right, exactly.
How have they adjusted to not only their own grieving and their own loss, but dealing with yours and your husband's need to grieve the loss? Has there been mutual support? Has there been outside influence? How have you guys been able to work your way through that?
Our oldest daughter and our middle daughter kind of grieved alone and on their own. We gave them their space, just kind of watched over, made sure they were doing it okay. Our youngest daughter, she was 12 at the time, had a lot of issues. She began having anxiety. She began some panic attacks, and she was the one that when we were told the news was rubbing my back saying it'll be okay. And I knew that one day it'll catch up with her. She struggled a little bit in high school with her anxiety. I mean, grades were good, everything, but it was really hard for her. After high school, she went on to college, but came back to Gilroy, and she was paired up with a service dog through Operation Freedom Paws. So she had a service dog for a while, and that service dog would help notify her when she was about to have a panic attack or her anxiety. So helped her a lot in that aspect, because the dog would jump on her and kind of distract her, lead her in another direction. Since then, she no longer has her service dog. She found it really hard to even get a job with a service dog. It's very hard. It's very tough. But she decided also to go about it and try to deal with it on her own, and she's done a great job. And today she has a couple of mixed shepherds and a cat, and she has her own animals, and she's an animal service control officer. So she deals with animals every day. So
she found her therapy on her own in the direction that worked for her, and that's awesome. That's very good. There's a follow-up chat for you, Lana, that says, have other mothers supported you, and if so, in what ways?
I think after Jeremy's death, and I think it was the next year, we started going to the Gold Star Remembrance in San Francisco and meeting other families and other mothers, and I got to know other Gold Star mothers, and that helped a lot because we were dealing with the same thing, same issues, and you could talk to that person, they would know what you're going through, and it was a great support system. Since then, now, years after, I'm able to help someone else who has lost a child. There are a couple of moms I'm in touch with. One had lost a child a few years ago, and I still, on his birthday, on his death day, I send her a message and, some encouragement. And to this day, she turns around and she does it to somebody else that she knows that's lost a child.
So there's that kind of pay it forward thing too. It's interesting. I think that's where we all met, wasn't it, in San Francisco initially?
Yes.
And there's an annual event that unfortunately is for parents only, but it's a Gold Star Family Parents event that occurs in San Francisco. And I remember the first year I went kicking and screaming. I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't want to talk about my feelings. I didn't want to talk about Joey. I mean, I didn't want to talk about Joey, but I didn't want to deal with the feelings around talking with Joey. And it turned out that it's extremely therapeutic to be involved with families that have gone through somewhat the similar situation. And I don't think the cause of death is as important as the loss and that common loss. And it is unique to lose your loved one while they're serving in the military, but a loss is a loss, whether it's a spouse's loss or a parent's loss. And I think we've all found a way to support other families that have had similar needs. Chuck, there's a chat here for you. How do you balance honoring your fallen heroes and the rest of your family and friends?
It's a learning curve. It's because I do have two older children. Both my children were adults when Charles was killed, so they had their own lives. So there was a lot of mixed feelings amongst us, and yet there was a lot of camaraderie with us too. But we found that each one of our children felt differently. Each one of our children we had to work with differently. And even though the pain's there, but the sorrow is very personal. And so it took a while for my other children to understand why we wanted to honor Charles so much and why we get invited to all these events and things like that. But now they kind of climb on board and they understand what's going on. And they're very thankful, But that was quite a challenge for the first 18 months or so with our other kids trying to. Because my daughter told me once, he says, what else can we do? Our brother died a hero, and what are we left with? There's nothing we're going to be important about. And we had a lot of discussion trying to work through all that. And so
sometimes it's kind of like, hey, me, I'm still here.
Yes.
And all you're
Yes.
doing is focusing on what's gone.
Exactly.
And that causes that kind of dynamic that, and I'm privileged enough to know your family pretty
Yes.
well, and you've got some great kids, and our great support to other siblings
Yes.
in the Gold Star community that are kind of going through the same thing, and they found kind of a role, at least your son has, with working with other Gold Star siblings and helping them to understand that the parents need their space and their ability to grieve, and it's not going to always be the same way.
Yeah.
This year is not the same as last year. You know, it's in about 5 more days, it'll be 9 years since Joy was killed, 25 July, and that always seems to send all the tensions in a different direction. You think you're dealing with it and you think you're understanding it, but do you guys find that there's these anniversary dates tend to be triggers and tend to make things more difficult?
Yeah, but a lot of times I don't know if my older daughter and my son, you know, the date comes and it goes, and they're kind of very silent. It's probably a period of time, like 3 or 4 days, we don't really talk to each other much. And I've asked them about that, and they said, well, Dad, we just need our space. We need that time for us to deal with it. Now, they talk to each other about Charles, but they may not necessarily call Dad and talk to Dad about Charles.
But that's the way it was when Charles was around.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
We all go through that,
Yeah.
right?
And I remember my son saying, well, Dad, you know, we talked about you a lot. And I said, well, I hope so. Most kids talk about their parents, right? And don't say anything. But,
I think one of the most interesting things is what we found out about our kids and or our husbands actually after they
Absolutely.
gave that ultimate sacrifice, and we found out some of the stories and some of the things they did, and it was it's pretty amazing what we don't know, what we find out.
Yeah.
But it definitely has been an interesting journey. So Natalie, how does Mac ask many questions about Ben?
He does. He has over the years. So he's 7 now.
Right.
So he really only had 3 months as an infant with his dad before Ben went off to Iraq. So over the years, as you know, the anniversaries would come by or different memorial significant days, he was aware. You know, we allowed him and wanted him to be present and experience those things. But I think just over the past couple of years, he started to ask more questions, and they're not. They come at random times, and they're interesting.
At the most unexpected moments, huh?
Yes. One time he wanted me to tell him funny stories of Ben, and I actually like the questions because it kind of gives me an idea of where he's at and processing that, and it helps me remember and recall, because sometimes you get caught up in daily life, and when I have my child there to remind me, like, don't forget to think about him, you know? I hate to say that. I mean, I think about him every day, but to be deliberate about remembering certain memories is important. So I think he's handling it pretty well, and we'll see. I don't know. I think one day it's gonna hit him one day, and I'm kind of dreading that day, but it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I won't say anymore. I have some insight into that because I know Max so well. But there was a chat that I saw there that brought up an interesting question. It was directed to me, and that it was, Kevin, how and when do you get over the loss? I was at an event last weekend, an honor event. We were with the Gold Star family from down in the South Bay, and the father sat on the bench, and exactly he said to me, Kevin, when does the pain get any less? When do you stop? No, he said, when do you stop feeling the pain? And I said, Richard, you never stop feeling the pain. And you don't. It softens with time. Time doesn't heal that. I'm going to be careful what I say. I'm on the air. But time doesn't heal anything. It really doesn't. But it can soften, and we can learn to cope with the feelings, but I personally don't want the pain to stop, because that's what keeps Joey alive in me, is the remembrance and the pain. And that sounds weird. You guys know what I'm talking about.
agree.
Yeah.
They may not know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about, but you guys know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
You want that pain.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want that because it keeps them alive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it really does.
Well, and that's why we do what we do throughout the earth, all these events,
Yeah.
you know, and Veterans Day, Memorial's Day, and California Run for the Fallen, and Wear Blue to Remember, and especially for, you know, you're talking about pain and the legacies, and I think with, unfortunately not for you, but with us, they live on through our children and the grandkids, and Zoe's very matter of fact with her dad, and she stands up in class, and it's Veterans Day today, and you know you need to thank a service member, and
Tells all his
my
friends.
daddy was killed in the military, and this is what he did it for, and she's, I mean, I've taught her from a young age. I started at 3, and just the way I approached it was, today's the day that God needed a little extra help watching over you. And as she's getting older now, she gets more and more details, but she's very good. And letting people know, hey, thank a service member. Hey, you know, thank this person. We'll be out in public and thank you for your service, sir. And I'm pretty proud.
Yeah, she does a great job. There's an email here that I'm not catching all of. I'll read this in a general way because I don't want it to be specific, just because it says, you're honoring your sons the right way. You inspire wounded veterans like me to keep moving forward. All of the families that are there are in my thoughts all the time. We want to make sure we're honoring your families the right way too. And you know, the veterans, you know, I'll go back to an experience that occurred with me when Joey was, and I want to thank Vic for writing in on that. There's some there that I'll talk about later, but thanks, Vic. Vic happens to be a Silver Star recipient, and he is one of the biggest supporters of, I mean, he saved guys' lives, literally saved guys' lives. He's a super guy. And it's the veterans that helped. I mean, initially when Joy was killed, you know, it was the fact that, especially the Vietnam vets, we're going to make sure that none of our kids, none of our spouses, none of our sons, none of our daughters ever came home without the honor that a lot of their buddies do. And I got to go back. Sometimes I think about 1967, and I think about what it would have been like to be a wife or a mom or a dad in 1967, and your son, no, it wouldn't be son or daughter because in those days there wouldn't, but your son gets killed in Vietnam. And because of the horrible black mark in our history around the Vietnam War and how society was treating our veterans and our service members, who did you turn to then? I mean, we're to a certain extent, we're fortunate.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's kind of a funny way to talk about ourselves, but to a certain way, because we have people that went through that era to make sure that we don't go through that same thing, that they bring, that every one of our boys and girls come home with honor. You know, whether it's the Patriot Guard writers or the Warrior Watch writers or Vietnam vets or in any of those organizations, VFW, American Legion, they make sure that none of our kids, that all of our kids get the honor that they deserve. And I got to tell you that I didn't realize really. I kind of put myself in the place of what it would have been like then when you don't even get the knock on the door. No. I mean, the knock on the door is horrible, but at least you got somebody there giving you the respect and the honor. You get maybe a telegram. I mean, it was a terrible time. So I want to just thank the veterans that are out there that make sure that our kids get the honor that they deserve, because we know that your buddies didn't, and we really. We're not happy about that. We're not proud of that era in our country's history. And so if there's any Gold Star Vietnam Gold Star parents, I just want to say thank you for your sacrifice, and thank you for raising up young men that were courageous enough to go out and give their lives for our country.
Yeah, I have a great story of an example of that, because my really good friend Spike, who at that time was Warriors Watch, and he was there with Ben escorting him for the service and the procession, and he actually stuck with me for past 7 years and has just always been supportive. And he's a veteran. He's actually active duty right now, and he wants to make sure the sacrifice is honored. And he took me to the graveside just this year actually, for the first time, well, second time. He's just always been there. So there's so many people like that out there, and it's really felt, it's really appreciated.
And that's, you know, that's because the veterans get it. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
Anybody that wants to can call in. We have a few minutes left in the show. We'd love to hear from you. This is for Jessica and Natalie. You both look very young. How do you see yourselves? Has it been difficult to be young and experience something so significant? Do you allow yourselves to move on? Wow. That's a pretty simple question to answer, huh?
Oh, very simple.
Yeah, it's tough. I think with my situation, you know, Sean and myself, you talk about those things because they're going into a war zone. And you're not naive to the fact that it can happen, but we just didn't think it was going to happen to him. Yeah. I always thought, if anything else, he's going to lose limbs, and I'm going to take care of him, and I'll do that for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that knock on the door is the worst day of my life. And you don't get over it, but again, being so young, Sean and I talked, we didn't know we were pregnant till 2 weeks after he deployed. And he wanted our daughter to have a father one day, you know, and things like that. And I have moved on. It took a while, and it was difficult because your husband's taken from you. It's not an ugly divorce or a separation. Right. So you will always have love for that person. And when I started dating my boyfriend at the time, I was very blunt and said, this is the thing. My husband was taken from me. I'm very much in love with him still, and I'm going to do military events and things like that in support of him and others, and to raise Zoe that way. So if you're man enough to handle that, then I'm the girl for you. And so, but again, you can't be naive too that we are younger and we were going to move on. And I think we both met great guys who are strong enough to handle our situation and help us raise our kids knowing about their dads.
But that's a great point for all of us, because I think that, because sometimes I got an email on our foundation website the other day from a lady that was struggling. And I don't know who she is. Her name didn't mean anything to me other than it was somebody that was definitely hurting and had read some of the things that we do with our foundation. You guys are going to be part of one this weekend that we do, and you guys have been part of some of the things we do with our foundation, just to help us get through the grieving process. I mean, and I think the point is that our kids, our spouses, didn't want us to be unhappy for the rest of our lives. They didn't sign up to the military to make us suffer. Yes. They had honor in what they did. There's honor in the sacrifice, and sometimes it's very difficult when you're so you get caught up in this toxic grief sometimes to see the honor in the sacrifice. And I think you guys are great examples of the fact that, you know, Ben, Sean, they didn't want you to be unhappy. Joey didn't want me to be unhappy. None of our kids wanted us to be unhappy for the rest of their life. It's just the choice they made. We supported it at the time, and we have to continue to support it, no matter how difficult, you know, it might be.
And it gets complicated. I mean, for a spouse, you know, I'm grateful for Jessica because we relate on just so many different levels. But I mean, I remember when Ben died, I took all of my son's baby clothes and threw them in the garbage. I thought, I'm never having kids again. I'm never getting married or, you know, gonna see anyone else because it's just, it burned. And I mean, since then I have moved on. I actually will be married to my now husband for 4 years in August, and he's an incredible man who he's not a replacement, you know. I mean, he honors Ben. He respects him. He's never crossed that line of trying to be him. And honestly, they're so different. At first I was like, this is so complicated. I'm in love with my husband, and you're in the picture, and you're such a good guy, but I don't, this is really scary, and you're nothing alike, and it was so complicated. But I mean, he really stepped up, and he's a good father, and he's a good husband, and I couldn't just stay stuck in the grief, because what good am I going to be to the world if I'm just stuck in that and I can't see,
or to your child,
or to my kid, about, you know, how can I help other people by giving them hope that, hey, I've moved into a place where I feel very blessed and I've had a lot of great experiences. And if you've gone through something tough, you can get there too. You
And
know?
I think you had to replace some of those baby clothes you threw out too, huh?
I did, 'cause I now have 3 children, and I'm so grateful I do, because they're amazing.
Well, you know, we're getting close to winding up our time here. I told you guys it would go by faster than you thought it would. We're going to get an opportunity to see a video here in a few minutes, and I just want to recognize the individual that put this video together. His name's Ted Peterson, and he's a veteran who, through his own struggles with his issues, he felt that there was a need to make sure that none of our fallen heroes were forgotten, and so he put together a video, and we're going to see that video now, I believe, it's very meaningful. It's very meaningful to me personally because he asked me to help him with it, and it's very meaningful because it comes from somebody that doesn't suffer any loss. It's just a veteran that feels our pain and wanted to do something about it. So I want to thank our guests for joining me tonight in this very powerful and moving discussion. We now have the music video, Blue Stars Turn Gold.
Warm summer night in this little town. My boy and me went riding our bikes around, just like we'd done 100 summer nights before. We passed the Murray's house on Maple Street, stopped for a minute there 'cause we could see something different about that service banner hanging by their door. I heard Daddy, I thought that star was blue, and I wondered then if he knew. Blue stars turn gold, blue stars turn gold. It'll leave an awful ache deep inside your soul when blue stars turn gold. I said that's the home of a hero there, the answer to a grateful nation's prayer, so we could sleep in peace tonight and know we're safe. Someone who fought for the stars and stripes, knowing he might make this sacrifice to keep us living in the land of the free, home of the brave. So when you see those colors changed around, that family's whole world turned upside down. When blue stars turn gold, blue stars turn gold, it'll leave an awful ache deep inside your soul when blue stars turn gold. just gotta trust the good Lord's in control, and He welcomes another soldier home. When blue stars turn gold, blue stars turn gold, it'll leave an awful ache deep inside your soul. When blue stars turn gold. Blue stars turn gold.
What a fantastic tribute. I just want to thank Ted again for all his hard work in honoring our kids. For a final thought, I want, Chuck has one last thing he wants to share with us.
Well, Kevin, as you know, I have older children that they were adults when Charles died. And one of my other sons came and he was listening to my brother and I speaking, and he told me, he says, you know, I'll never have that opportunity to talk to Charles about the things we've done throughout our lives. And I know it hurt him pretty badly.
That's that collateral damage that we talked about. So thank you for that, Chuck, and thanks again to my guests.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Ted Peterson, and yeah, I just want to mention how compelling tonight's show has really been, and the strength that is shown from our guests this evening, and the opportunity that Ted Peterson took to take a challenge in his life and turn it into a tribute to our fallen service members. I think as veterans, I want to challenge all of us to have the same strength as our Gold Star families. And I want to challenge us to live our lives in a way which we live every day to recognize the loss that those service members represent every day, and that we need to live our lives in remembrance of them and live our lives every day. Now let's turn our attention to an exciting event coming up that will also open doors for veterans trying to find a way to make their way back into civilian life easier and more productive. On August 17th, VetCon is coming to Concord. VetCon is an opportunity for veterans like you to gather and network with employers, educational institutions, health and benefits, and most importantly, each other. And of course, I want to invite the family members to participate in VetCon as well. VetCon creates an environment where veterans can share their stories of the transition from military life to the career, hobby, or interest that drives their passion today. Your passion. Bring it to VetCon. This year's Veterans Voices will be broadcasting live from VetCon. That'll be the revealing of our second season of Veterans Voices, in which we will feature many of the resources, many of the veterans there at VetCon live on Monday, August 17th. We're really excited. Join us at the Concord Hilton and be a part of Veterans Voices in person. So join us in person at the Concord Hilton, or tune in to CCTV and watch us live on August 17th. Another great event for vets is the 9th annual Joey Graves Memorial Golf Tournament, put on by our co-host here, Kevin Graves, in Discovery Bay Country Club. Come out and celebrate the lives of military heroes on Monday, September 14th. For more information and to register, go to somegayall.us. Again, that's at the Discovery Bay Country Club. In an effort to connect homeless veterans in Contra Costa County to the services they need to get back on their feet, Delta Veterans Group is hosting a 4-day stand down on the Delta. This event is happening in Antioch on September 11th through the 15th. For more information or to donate or to volunteer, go to deltaveteransgroup.org/stand down. They could really use your help. We would like to tell you an exciting and free event for veterans. This Veterans Self-Portrait Project will be a free self-portrait painting workshop for veterans during the month of October. Art experiences or skills aren't necessary. This is an event for you. Just a desire to express yourself is all that's required. If you'd like to participate, sign up at VetCon on August 17th or call Roger at 925-646-2278.
You'll find information about the resources discussed tonight on our website. You can also go get the same information by calling our Veteran Service Office. The contact info will be listed on the last screen. Let us know if you found us by watching Veterans Voices. The Gold Star Family Registry is the most extensive directory of heroes who have fallen in combat since World War II. To search a name or for more information on Gold Star families, go to goldstarfamilyregistry.com. Survivor Outreach Services is a program designed to provide long-term support to surviving families of fallen service members. For local representatives in your areas, call 855-707-2769. Also, TAPS, the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, is a helpful place for families to start. For information or to obtain a free survivor resource kit, go to taps.org. If you're looking for services in your area, for bereavement or for any of your needs, go to www.vetcenter.va.gov and select the Locations drop-down menu for your local vet center. Vet centers provide invaluable information and huge support for both veterans and their families. And lastly, we would like to direct you to the Contra Costa Veteran Service Office, which is a great overall resource for veterans and their families in Contra Costa County. Go to our website or call 925-313-1481. Tell a friend where to find tonight's episodes. We replay our shows Monday nights at 7, Wednesday nights at 11, and Saturdays at 9. You can watch all past episodes anytime on our website, contracostatv.org/Veterans Voices.
We'd like to dedicate tonight's show to the brave men who lost their lives last week in an attack on a military facility in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Sergeant Carson Holmquist, Staff Sergeant David Wyatt, Lance Corporal Skip Wells, Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan, Navy Petty Officer Randall Smith. Again, we want to dedicate this show to those fine men and offer our condolences to their families and friends. We want to thank you, our guests, and our viewers. Thank you for all the questions and the comments tonight. Thank you to the hardworking CCTV crew and all who make this show possible. Remember, together, we can do great things for veterans in our community. And this is Veterans Voices of Contra Costa wishing you all a good evening. Thank you for serving.